Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for hopping on Metal for the Masses, the only place playing it harder, faster,
No
louder
problem.
than anybody else. And the reason I brought everybody together is one, to talk about a similar problem, maybe that everybody here has been having, maybe a problem that that one or two of you have not been having, but it seems to be an issue that is plaguing more than one of us here. And to also talk about the scene in general, how easy maybe technology has been, or maybe is it hindering us a little more than it's helping. So let's go around the table. Who are we? Where do we hail from? What are all y'all's projects? Starting with Mr. Voidkeeper here.
We are Voidkeeper. I'm Mark. I'm the drummer. This is Bowen, our bassist.
Hi.
We are from South Shore, Boston area, Massachusetts.
Hell yeah. We have, I'm just looking out, everything's strapped here on my screen. Mr. Mason. Do we got you? Is it frozen? Can you hear us? Oh no, I think we might have lost him already. Darn. This is
Well, at least you can take that, edit it, and just kind of smush it in.
Yep, we'll just switch it in. But of course, Mr. Jones, sir, you would be next down the line.
Yeah, that would be me, the bassist of the Obsidian Resurrection, symphonic death metal band. I'm the only one that could be here today. We're kind of spread out. Members, and 2 members from California, 1 from Arizona, and 1 from Washington.
Gotcha. And then last but not least, Mr. Stephen Haggerty.
Hey guys, I'm Steven. I play guitar for Sagen, and we're in North Carolina, mostly in the Raleigh area.
We're in North Carolina.
3 of the guys are in Raleigh, and then the other guitarist is in Goldsboro, and then I'm out in New Bern near the coast.
Cool. Just curious. Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Mason, do we got you back?
Yeah, I'm back, I think. Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened there.
Gotcha.
It's lagging hard.
Nice.
Well, do a quick introduction real fast if we lose you again.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Mason. I play drums for Symphony of Heaven, melodic death metal band from Indiana. We're all kind of spread out over the state, but kind of generally focused towards Evansville area. So
Nice. Now, I've had the absolute honor to interview all of you separately. It's great to have you all here on the same thing, to kind of get your takes on maybe just one topic, being that we're here to talk about how some of you have been slighted recently by the program Spotify. So do we care to go in depth about this?
Absolutely.
Mark can go first.
Yeah.
You could argue that I'm sure we all have a fat bone to pick. So, where we're at, right? Besides a few frustrating days of emails back and forth with something that's clearly not a human, we, like most other artists, just tried to get our name out across as many platforms as possible. Obviously it's pretty tough as a small guy in the world of music. I'm sure you can all agree to try and, turn profit or even just get people to be able to have access to the music you're putting out. So we figured, hey, Spotify, huge platform, why not? So, for a while we were promoting it, getting those numbers up, and that was awesome, great feeling until I woke up and those numbers were back down to literally nothing. And then this ended up being a pattern for a couple of days where I would email them and they would say, well, we might have removed some spam accounts, which understandably so. Everyone's got those occasional bots popping in, something like that. But the problem is there weren't 800 bots removed in one night when we had 900 followers. So we ended up putting out a couple feeler posts across social media, trying to reach out to our fan base, being like, hey, just, double check for us to make sure you're still following us. And it turns out our legitimate fans are not following us and they're kind of pissed off about it.
Yeah, because I've listened to your stuff, and I also believe it when you say that there can't be, if in in a world where you have 900 followers, if you're on a platform and 800 of them are bots, then I would imagine that that website would be in some pretty big trouble with
Yeah.
a lot of fake accounts and that kind of stuff to essentially, because Spotify uses those numbers to determine how much you guys get paid, royalty rights. So with that being said, so you guys were noticing this trend, and I
And this
believe at one
continued on
point,
for, almost a week now. So, after these emails, we, put out another post being like, hey, just double check. And if you're not following us, be sure to follow us again. Sorry about that. So we gained another 400 back. And then the next day we were back down to 81. So it's like, it's kind of hard for me to believe that, all these people who follow us are spam bots. Since in fact, we know a lot of them personally. So unless my friends are not real, and if they aren't that, then I should probably get medical help. But
Yeah.
it's just not blocked.
or you need to start sharing, man, because listen, if you had if you're using that shit and you ain't sharing, man, I don't know what to
Sharing
say
is
here.
caring.
It
Yeah,
is.
sharing is caring. Yeah, I mean, dude, every opportunity, I am sitting on the phone, the computer, whatever it takes to make sure that our stuff is being pumped out, sharing links left and right, being a
Nice.
part of MetaLink and stuff like that, Metal Incorporated with you guys, another great platform for us to be able to get out there and promote ourselves amongst other like-minded individuals. So when we, talk in Metal Incorporated with the guys and, we all follow each other, we all support each other, are you going to tell me that this entire community that we have built here and given to us in front of us is also a bunch of bots? Because obviously that's just not the case.
Yeah. I want to jump over. I want to talk to Steven out there in North Carolina. Your band Sagen, have you guys noticed anything like this with Spotify?
For us, that we really, we have like no followers to begin with, so we haven't encountered that yet. Hopefully, we don't get that later on when we do get some followers and stuff.
Yeah.
But, so I can't really.
Do you think that maybe you
contribute to
guys?
that.
Do you think that maybe the reason why, like maybe on Spotify at least, with followers, because I follow your account on Instagram and all other social medias. You guys have a pretty decent following, going on there. So to not have that on Spotify as well, do you think that maybe Spotify might be finagling their numbers a little bit, and it might just be affecting you a lot on that plane?
Yeah. I'd have to look, but we probably have less than 80 followers on Spotify. And usually we do get, a couple hundred like views and listens whenever we just released a Lamb of God cover. And, that got some good traffic, and it I guess you're right. It hasn't what's the word? It hasn't really pushed into our Spotify followers.
Yeah.
So,
because if I'm looking
maybe.
at if I'm hearing what Voidkeeper's saying, and they're saying like, they're going from like 900 to essentially 100 to, I was talking to Mark just before this, at one point it was down to like fucking 10. That's some serious, if it's bots, that's some serious bot problems that Spotify is having. Or, I might go as far to say that they're purposefully finagling numbers just so that they don't have to pay people certain royalty rates.
I have something to add to that when you guys are ready to let me talk.
We'll roll back to you. I want
bit.
to give Mason and Josh a
absolutely.
chance to talk about this kind of stuff. So
I can't wait.
Mason, Josh, do you guys have something to add to this?
Well, I have something
yeah.
similar. Sorry,
What?
Mason, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Josh. It's cool.
All right. I had something similar happen with the Obsidian Resurrection Spotify. I was at work and I got an email message from Spotify saying that I had to change my password because there was some suspicious activity on my account. I'm like, what the fuck? There's nothing suspicious going on, And so I tried to log in and they forced me to change my password. And so I was like, fuck it, I guess I'll do that. And I changed my password, And we all of a sudden went from 1,018 followers to 132, like instantly. I was like, whoa, pump the brakes, dude. What the hell's going on here, you know? And so when I got home from work, I called them. Was that?
I think we might have lost connection here
Doing good.
again. Oh my goodness, this is so bad. So
Is it us?
Yeah,
I
it's
don't every
like,
oh sorry, Josh, you kind of broke off just a little bit. So if you want to kind of repeat, you were coming home from work, you signed on, they made your change your password, you were down to like 132 followers, and then after that you cut out.
I was saying I started talking with tech support while at work in like a chat, but we kept going back and forth. I wasn't getting anywhere. I can tell this person just, I didn't feel like they knew what the hell they were doing. So I was fed up. And I said, hey man, can I talk to an actual person on the phone? You know, they gave me a contact number. And when I got home from work, I called them. And I'm not even joking. I was on the phone for over 3 hours with this person. Mind you, I just got home from work. I don't get home from work till like 11:30 at night. I'm fucking tired, but I'm trying to deal with this. I'm being polite, giving them all the information they need, all the screenshots, whatever they're asking for, I'm providing. And ultimately, we're just talking in circles, and they just go, sounds like you lost your followers, man. It happens. Click. He hung up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
did this motherfucker just do this? And so I got nowhere with it. And yeah, it's been a struggle trying to rebuild that. You know, you spend about 2 years trying to build this platform up so people get to hear your music, and it's gone instantly. And now we're basically back to square one. It's bullshit, especially since they're supposed to be the top of the top. You know, they're supposed to be they claim to take care of their artists, but they obviously don't.
That sounds like it.
No, they do not.
But Mason, you've been patiently waiting. I do appreciate that, sir.
All good. I lagged out earlier, so it's all good.
It's all good.
So Symphony of Heaven hasn't had that problem yet, and we just checked. I just had so Logan runs our Spotify and all the accounts. He won't give them over to me for some reason. But I had him check what 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and last I saw we were at 1,600 followers on Spotify. That number has pretty steadily gone up since the release of our latest album back in December. We released our second album, Maniacal and Tropic Discordium, and it's gone pretty steadily high up there. But I was doing some research on this, and there's quite a few like reported cases of this in the last, I don't know. So the oldest date I have on here is 2018.
I just want to pause. This is the part in the discussion where the hour-long conversation I thought we were going to have actually turns into 15 minutes, because this is where he blows holes into all of our platforms.
This is where
Bring
we
it.
all do. Yeah, no. So
This is where
older-
the actually comes into.
No, but we were talking about, someone mentioned an email. I think that was Mark. Mentioned an email about removal of official users. I'm pretty sure that's what they've all been saying every time this report comes up, because I found an email in 2020 that was just like that. Someone posted on a forum saying this is what they're sending to us. So if anyone notices a dip in users, this is why. But I agree with you. I don't think that you would lose that many followers that quickly. Like you can't so I found one in 2018, and he's not metal, so he goes by the Green Raver. He lost 41,000 followers
Whoa.
in a night. He was down 119 followers on Spotify. So if those 41,000 people, and that's rounding down, by the way, there was more, but that's rounding down. If he lost all of those followers, then that shows that Spotify has a bigger problem on their hands than they might be willing to admit.
Right.
Because I mean, that's absurd. That's almost like this whole deal with Twitter. Twitter's
Yeah.
they found out that they have all these bot users, and that's why Elon Musk backed out of buying it. It's absurd. I found a few others. One with this username Sarah Raising. She didn't give her band name. On April 29th, they had 816 followers, and the next day they had 22. So that was the most recent case I could find. And then, of course, your guys, Voidkeeper's situation where you guys lost, what was it? It was like 800 in a night, and then built it back up and lost another 6 or something like that.
Yep, and like basically this pattern is becoming daily at this point. So the number is just gonna be random and sporadic at this point.
So does it sound like, I don't know, does it sound intentional? Because if we can't say that it is targeting just the metal community, because
I know for a fact they are.
you're right.
So
Well,
if you were to go on YouTube, right? So some of the bigger metal names in YouTube, like in the metalcore genre, right? You've got Nick Nocturnal, big dude who's on YouTube, whatever. He actually in the past couple months put out a few videos about how Spotify has removed over 90% of metal-based playlists off their platform in general, including the actual playlist that Spotify itself generates for the individual metal genres. So you kind of look at the big picture while they're absolutely nuking all these major bands and major, 500,000 plus subscribers to these playlists. If Spotify's removing that much content out of the metal community, I mean, they're just probably looking at us like we're little flies at this point.
right. See, I didn't know
That's
that then.
marketable, and they don't see it as marketable, and that's why they're pulling it.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't know that. That's quite concerning that Spotify would be just actively getting rid of metal. I would love to sit down and talk to one of them, like just see, like, is it because they deem it as non-profitable? Do they just deem it as, like, I would love to know what it is, why they are actively, I guess, just actively just going after metal alone there. But the Green Raver, which sounds like a fucking superhero name,
It does.
that Mason was talking about here, I guess that's probably like EDM kind of music. I don't know. I would say so, but I don't know. Who knows? I don't want to miss genre that man's music. He might come after us.
Bud.
Right. It's just concerning, you don't want to put all this work into something and then just have it crumble in like the span of like a fucking day because somebody somewhere deems you either A, non-profitable, B, the bullshit that we hear about metal music in general, oh, that's scary music, or what, like whatever bullshit somebody wants to come up with. I just don't, it can't go on like that. It's definitely, it definitely doesn't bode well for like, artists that may be just starting in this genre. You guys are working hard doing what you guys are doing, and you guys are getting this kind of a treatment, but it definitely doesn't bode well for the scene in the future. Going back over here to Voidkeeper, sir. I know your Let Me Kill Mr. Impersonator over here has several bands that he's in. Have you experienced this with any of the other bands that you've been in?
Yes, and I'm gonna do that in a second, but I can tell you regarding like the last talking point that you brought up was why they are filtering certain things versus others is that they are paid. So you've got Taylor Swift's publicist that is and marketing campaign that is millions and millions and millions of dollars. You can't tell me that Spotify isn't being paid to feature that, and that's front and center. I mean, that's rudimentary information.
At the end of the day, it's a corporation. They're being paid like that.
Exactly.
Like this information aside, we get this, but this is just open discrimination against a genre of music.
Precisely.
whether it's paid or not paid. This is open.
Well, another thing is they base their algorithms around it. So I mean, like think about Slayer, think about Metallica, both big marketable metal bands. And it's not the genre, it's just who's pushing the material and who's getting the most streams. And I'm going to tell you a story because I've got a big, big, big bone to pick with Spotify. And thank you, Mark, for calling me and letting me come in.
I figured Mr. Bowen here would have just a couple select choice words.
Okay.
I'm
So,
sure.
my dad, who just passed last December, was one of the most prolific singer-songwriters in American history. And he has been covered by everybody from Nancy Griffith to Simon and Garfunkel. Dave Matthews Band opened for him when they were first starting out. And he put his music on Spotify. I mean, this guy was future-proof, you know, I mean, he was old school, like still mailing people CDs and, you know, going to the post office 3 times a day to do, you know, just manual. It's in the mail, you will get it. And I know it.
Right.
And so he put his music on Spotify, and it got picked up by Celtic Thunder. One of his most famous songs got picked up by the band Celtic Thunder.
Right.
And they covered a song. They got 170 million streams.
Wow.
On a song that he wrote. And that, you know, song written by Bill Staines is at the bottom. And it trickled down to him, and he got royalties from the Celtic Thunder version of his song. Out of 170 million views,
I'm guessing $5.
streams, he made 17 cents.
Holy shit.
And this is something that
all of his numbers jumped up for the next, you know, almost a decade, because like it's just been kind of coming and going and stuff like that. Like, you know, you're popular one month and then, you know, something else. Exactly, precisely. Yeah, exactly. And I think the most that he made off of one of the songs that he wrote, and it's been covered by Simon and Garfunkel, it's called Roseville Fair. He made 3 cents from that.
And this is something
that's what music is worth to Spotify, because it can be quantified, and it is easy to write an algorithm to protect a company's best interests instead of an artist's best interests. And this is industry standard, because the record business and like the music business has been broken for a long time. And this just makes it easier to break it further.
Well, it's bullshit when you look at the streaming royalty breakdown. Sorry, John, don't mean to interrupt you. So I just want to piggyback on that. Like, you can go on to, like, I use DistroKid for the Obsidian Resurrection.
Yeah, we do too. That's just what
you can look at your streaming royalty breakdown, and when you look at Spotify, you make something like 0.000000237 blah 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 of a penny per stream. It's
so
ridiculous.
I have those numbers. I looked that up too. It said what I found was it's 0.003 to 0.005 cents per stream. That's what they give to artists per stream. At least that's what the website I found.
Sorry to interject, but this is why so many bands these days start their own labels, because you know who's listening to your music, you know where the money is going, and you're guaranteed to be able to at least continue support the habit, if nothing else. You know, it's impossible to live on cents on the cent. You know, that's why so many people have there's so many great up and coming like record labels and things like that, because people are just sick of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that I've been sick of for a long time. I keep talking about on my show. I feel like I beat a dead horse every time I talk about it, but it's just the royalty rates that Spotify pays people these days. It almost, you know, it's not worth it at the end of the day.
It's insulting.
It is insulting, because it's not worth it for a band at the end of the day to use Spotify, which is claiming to be this big time, like, you know, top of the pack way to get your music out there, you know. And if you're only in it just to get a profit off of it, you know, it's kind of dumb to begin with, but you're using it as a way to get
it's
your
dumb
music
to be a
out
musician
there.
to begin with if you're only looking to turn a profit.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't want to be a musician to get rich. It won't happen. It only happens to a select few, and they are very, 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 very fucking lucky about it. So anyway, going back to what I was saying, it's something that I've always been upset about in general, is just the way that it's advertised. It's put your music up on here. Everybody can stream and listen to it, and you'll get a return for that. And you get what? What's the most amount of money you could probably make in one lifetime if you're just a normal run-of-the-mill artist? Maybe 17 fucking cents. $7, maybe,
I mean, so,
not
like,
even.
Our actual stream numbers, we get about 13K in streams, right? So that
Yeah.
nets us just about $3 so far
Yeah.
out of royalties.
And
So
what's
if you, I mean, if
really
you do the
annoying-
math, man, if you want to get anything more than a pack of cigarettes, you're going to need 50,000 to 100,000 monthly listens. So the fuck?
I wanna ask Steven, because you'd said earlier, Steven, that you guys had like what, like maybe like 80 followers on Spotify,
We have 56.
56.
Just check.
Making
Have
57.
you guys
Yeah.
have you guys gotten a return for the amount of streams that you guys have had yet?
No, I don't think we've even. I think it's set at like $25 or something. Once it reaches that, they'll send something. But I think I remember getting like 25 cents in an email or something.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine just like waking up, looking at an email, and saying it's like, "Congratulations, here's 25 cents." Like,
Yeah, it's really annoying because
Thank you for the #1 hit,
yeah,
fuck off.
you know, the amount of time you put into music is like, for me, I write pretty much like everything for Sagen, and then I also mix it
yeah,
and do all the production, all the recording, all that stuff. You know, make the artwork, get everything all nice looking and stuff, and then you put it up and you get a couple of cents. When if you just think about how much money Spotify makes from like people who actually subscribe to the premium and stuff,
Oh, it's all
and
Yeah.
what do they have? Like
But-
they have like 100-something million subscribers, and
Yeah.
and how much is it every month? Like
Yeah.
$10.
$10. So you know how much bank are they making off that? And then the really annoying thing is I don't have premium. I have the free. That's so annoying. You listen to like maybe two or three songs, and then you have to listen to like 5 ads, and they're all the same ads on
It's all the
repeat.
same ads.
yep,
And then and another thing that's really annoying is that if you have free, so someone sends me their Spotify song, if I want, I can't just click on it and listen to it. It puts me in like a
Yep.
playlist that's like that music. And
Right.
it's like, no, I just want to listen to the song that someone just sent me.
and you
But I
don't
can't
know
do
how
that
long it
free.
is you got to wait in order to
Exactly.
fucking. This is why in the very beginning I was like, "This is fucking stupid," and deleted it. Like I'm talking years ago when it first came onto the scene, and everybody was like, "Oh, dude, like, why are you using Apple? You should do this." Apple's got their own fucking problems, but we're not here to talk about them because they're not actively going out doing this kind of shit. It just seems like Spotify is like the used car salesman. It's like, hey, come over here, pay this certain amount of money, we'll give you this, and as soon as you roll off the show lot, bumper falls off. Hey, it's not covered. Sorry, man. And that bumper is 800 followers. Just to paint that picture for you. It's like, oh, sorry, man. It looks like you just lost 800 followers. Well, are you going to explain to me why that is? You just sold me this thing. It's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, no idea. We just have this, multi-million-dollar company that we charge people money to do and put music up on. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. It almost just comes across that way. It just does not seem like it doesn't seem like they really give a shit, which I know corporation probably don't. They're in it for a profit. It's fine.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be going into this thinking that a corporation should have any kind of
No, of course.
feeling,
Accountability and
right, any
stuff
kind
like
of
that.
feeling towards what it is that they are doing.
Well, what's crazy is that that I don't know what it will take to actually show mega $1 million corporations that music and musicians are specialists. This is a specialized trade.
Right.
You mentioned a bumper. Like imagine like getting into a car accident and the guy is painting your bumper because you know that he's gonna fix it.
Yep.
And he is worth his time, and you know that because you have to foot the bill for it. But musicians are not treated that way. They're not treated like that at all. It's just like we're an endless kind of kind of pit of creativity that is just marketable or not. So what is it going to take to actually change this? That's just something that I just talked to Mark about like a second ago.
I think
What do we do?
that I have my thoughts, and this is kind of like, this follows into, the rest of this is like, what can artists do in this day and age to help out the scene? Because this is not just the only problem that goes on in the scene. But talking about this, there's been humongous change in the scene over the past decade or so. It's gone away from like, artists having to get out and I guess put posters up or, go around and do a man on the street and hand out, mixtapes and that kind of shit to post it up online and do all that kind of stuff. It needs to be that instead of trying to convince these corporations that have been here for decades to start treating us with more respect, we need to convince people to walk away from these companies completely.
I agree with you.
I honestly feel like it needs to be the other way around, because a big argument that I hear a lot from people, or just the same talking point, is what's it going to take for these companies to stop treating us like shit?
I think that's going to be so problematic at the end of the day, though, because I mean, let's all be real. We're all sucked in by the convenience of everyday bullshit.
Absolutely.
You have stuff by your fingertips, man. And they warned us about this, at least growing up. They're like, hey, man, like this stuff's going to be addictive someday.
Yeah.
We're all glued to our fucking phones and
Idle
glued to
hands, the
social
devil's
media,
playground.
all that stuff. So how is it our responsibility to look at the generation surrounding us and being like, hey, stop being glued to Spotify and Last FM and all these other platforms and stuff, and get out and actually support whether it's the artist, whatever the case is,
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about, because here's the thing. If the artists walk away from Spotify, Spotify doesn't have anything to give people who I guess would be their customers, the people that sign in to listen to Spotify.
Yeah.
And that's for anything. You don't need to convince the public to walk away from a company. The people who are supplying the music to Spotify need to all stop. Ultimately, because it's something that I hear in a lot of interviews that I do, if I just talk to an artist in general, it just seems to be this everybody knows they're getting fucked by them, and it's just like, well, everybody's getting fucked, there's no way to stop them from fucking us, so you know what, I'll just bend over and fucking take it. So it's just, if the artists all decided that, fuck this is bullshit, we don't need to be treated this way, we know what our art is worth, it's definitely not worth 0.000 whatever fucking cents on the dollar it is.
Yeah, you wouldn't say that to somebody when you're buying a painting,
right? And you also wouldn't say that to somebody when you're buying a car. You just wouldn't. In no other market is this the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and every other market has its bullshit, but it just seems to be, it's like, the level of complacency in the music artist world, where Steven's talking about how he does most of the writing for Sagen, does the mixing for Sagen, does the art for Sagen, make sure everything's neat and presentable and looks good, puts time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, sells his soul to Satan in order to fucking get everything right. It's an insult when a company comes and tells you this is what you're worth and it's less than a penny. It's just like the idea where it's like they can say, yeah, exactly. The idea that they can say there's millions of others of you doing the same thing, so this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
The only way to get these shady business practices to stop is just like the artists themselves, like how you guys were saying earlier, a lot of these artists are just starting their own fucking labels to begin with. This is that's the first step. The ultimate step needs to be just the complete walk away of these artists, because if you're going to try to convince, you need to stop trying to convince the corporations to treat you better. You got to stop trying to convince the people to walk away from that, because it is an addiction and people are still going to be addicted to the convenience of Spotify. The artists themselves, who are the ones who are really just getting abused in all of this, need to just say enough is enough and walk away. The big name artists will still be here because they're slaves to the corporate machine.
Yeah.
Well, let me touch on that for a second. I watched something yesterday. Was it yesterday? Sometime a couple days ago. I don't care if you don't like these people, you know, I'm not here for that. But Tim Pool and Tom McDonald, they both had similar instances happen to them, and they spoke very openly about this. You mentioned walking away from the music industry, and I think that's what needs to happen because they're doing some shady things. So I'll start with Tom McDonald. He made an album.
Wildly successful for
Yeah.
doing so.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
Tom McDonald made an album with Adam Calhoun. It reached #1 on every single chart except for Billboard. Billboard denied him his charting because they don't agree with his messages. Tim Pool, he's a political commentator. He made a song just to see if he can slap culture in his face and be like, hey, I'm here. You may not agree with me, but I'm going to do something with culture. His song reached #3 on several charts, but they refused him on many other charts because they don't agree with him. So at what point do we have to draw the line and be like, I don't care what you agree with. This is my art. Art is supposed to be subjective to the listener, you know?
But the problem
I don't
is
care.
that like you're subject to what the company's brand is.
That's
you know
what's
what their message
happening.
is. Like you can't really like have a horror franchise have any kind of sustainability or longevity if it's the IP is bought by Disney. You know,
Yeah.
you're subject to what you're allowed to release. So it's
And
kind
that's
of like
the
a kick in the
problem right
dick.
now. That's the problem right now with a lot of these is because you're seeing I guarantee there's going to be a multitude of other artists coming out of the woodworks because these two big prolific people, Tim Pool, Tom McDonald, I should say 3, Adam Calhoun, he was talking about too. It starts there and it's going to trickle down to other artists. They're going to start speaking up and they're going to tell their story like, hey, I was denied my royalties. I was denied my charting because they didn't like the message I said in this song. You can't have that in the music industry when it's supposed to be an art form. That right there is the problem. People with
Think
too
about
much
how
power.
expressive art has been. We've had motherfuckers set themselves on fire in a city street under the name that this is art, right? And now they're going to start rejecting people like our group here because we discuss themes that not everybody would agree with. You know, like come on, now,
like go
this,
fuck
this
yourself.
is not preschool.
Yeah.
This whole PC culture bullshit, dude. It needs. To
I
stop
don't
because
I
it doesn't
don't want to get too far off the rails going into that kind of stuff. What I do want to talk about though is like going back to, you know, maybe a message not being allowed. You know, these corporations definitely do have their own, you know, biases, have their filters. They do claim to be all about like, you know, come put your stuff on here. It's about the art. It's free speech. It's really not. It's bottom line. What can they sell? What's, you know, what's marketable? And I get that.
I mean,
which is
everybody
why,
that's got a voice will find a niche.
right.
You know what I mean?
Which
And, like
is,
think about Gigi Allen. You know, he didn't.
well, it's why I think it's like a big problem that I think a lot of artists or majority of the artists, you know, not just the metal scene, but any kind of underground scene is has a problem with right now is I feel like we focus too much on trying to get the corporations and the people themselves to change. We as the music community need to change. We can't be trying to advocate that these people stop fucking us, you know? And like you said, we can't be this whore that people keep just going back to and use primarily for their pleasure and then not respect at the end of the day, you know?
Mhm.
It's just, it's
I mean,
not
they
this,
get paid more than we do.
right.
Exactly.
In a world where
They
whores
get
get paid,
paychecks.
exactly. In a world where whores get paid more than artists on Spotify do, what's the world coming to? But
What's the world coming to?
what exactly? But no, I do feel like it's I just get tired of hearing people that say in complacency, yeah, it is what it is, but it's how we can get our music out there. So it's just something that we put up with. No, you know, you sound like the wife that gets beat by the guy because you stepped on his fucking lawn and
Exactly.
then says, well, you know what, it's something that I deal with, but I love him. And, you know, I'm just going to have to, I just put up with it because I love him.
Yeah.
We can't be this. We cannot be the abused housewife that just says, you know, oh, you know what, it's something that we have to deal with. And I just, it's
And
just
you
something.
also can do your part too by being like, if somebody comes up to you after a show and is like, "Are you on Spotify?" Fuck no.
Fuck
You know,
no.
you can do that too, but make a stink of it.
Oh, well, absolutely. This is why
Make
every
them
single
feel
show,
uncool, and then offer
every
a
single
compromise
show,
in exchange. You know,
not every single show, but almost every
Yeah.
show that I have on Metal for the Masses is I don't go off on a tangent, but I do talk fairly a lot on how I dislike Spotify and how much I think it sucks because of the fact that it really does. It abuses artists. I say it a lot. I'm not here to make a profit. I'm not here to do anything. I'm just here because I love this genre of music. I love the hard rock. I love the metal scene. I want to see these artists reach their maximum potential. I don't like seeing these artists get abused. I don't like seeing the scene get used the way it gets used, and to see the bullshit that these artists have to go through in order to reach, whatever their maximum potential it is. And I say this because not every artist is going to reach the same level as another. And that's just the hard truth of it all. You'll only go as high as you'll be able to get. And that's of no fault of anybody other than, hey, this is as high as your artistic capability will take you. And there's no shame in saying that. There is absolutely no shame in saying, some artists just reach a higher level than other artists. But there is something to say when, if a company says, because you've paid this amount of fucking money, or you have more of a marketable thing, we're going to promote you more, and we're actively going to go over and screw over these other artists. That's something that I don't like. I also dislike the royalty rates at Spotify, and I feel like I'm beating the fucking dead horse when I say
Yeah, but
this.
it needs to be beaten, dude.
it does.
It
And
needs
that's
to be. It really
it's-
does, and it needs to be looked into by someone who wants to expose it. Because I guarantee, they can pay so much better if you have someone go in there and comparatively look at their high end numbers compared to their subscribers and all the people that pay for their marketing and advertising compared to what they pay out. Dude, they're still making bank, and they can afford to pay way more on these royalties, and they just don't want to. That's what it is. They just don't want to.
no,
Didn't
not at all.
someone famous like a couple of years ago like bring it to court or something?
He tried. Yeah, I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, who
but
it was.
Someone
I know there
tried.
was a big Joe Rogan fiasco with Spotify,
Yeah.
but that's
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It was a
That's-
musician.
musician. I
musician.
don't know. Musician, I
think
do
it's
not
just
know.
it's just annoying because because we don't really have that many followers, and so we're not really looking for like a big check or anything. I mean, it would be nice one day, but our main purpose of using Spotify is just because they have the most users. They have like twice Apple Music or something like that.
More so about the
They-
outreach than actually reaching a fan base.
And then it's like, okay, so we want to use that so we can reach more people beyond like playlists and stuff and grow our follower base. But now it's like, well, if they're doing stuff like removing playlists and removing followers, it's like what's the point?
Right.
Why
Yeah.
even bother?
And it's
So-
like what you're saying is you want to use it to find followers and expand your fan base, but it's like they want you to spend your money to promote and advertise with them to do so.
Right.
And I guarantee you're just going to get a bunch of fake accounts anyways, because they seem to have a problem with that. So then they're going to punish you in the future anyways. So it seems to be like a never-ending cycle. It's an entrapment. It's a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah. So it really leads me to like the other portion of all of this. Like, I didn't want to just I can literally sit here and shit on Spotify because I hate it. But it really goes along to say, like, what do you guys honestly think about technology in the scene right now? Has this been, because we're talking about the problems that go on with Spotify. We're talking about the problems that go on with, these corporate entities that are, technological corporate entities that kind of seem to hinder the scene and kind of seem to promote certain things, but not other things based on their own biases. I read an article on metalinjection.net, and like him or hate him, it was Ghost. It was Tobias Forge of Ghost. And he was talking about,
I like them.
I love him.
And what Corey Taylor thinks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was reading this article and it was just going along to say, and oddly enough, they were talking about Spotify, which I thought was great because this was going on at the same time you guys were originally having all of your problems with Spotify. Talking about how Spotify has made it easier or has reinvigorated companies to invest in music, in the music artists again. And it also has brought these are his words, has brought them out of the shady business practices and into a more like a more stand up, more truthful kind of practice. Which I laughed because all this shit was going on at the same time. I was like, oh, the irony with this. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think
has
like a lot of it, like regarding what people are like the ease of complacency, I think has been made a lot easier by COVID,
yeah,
especially just like, you know, you've got a streaming platform as opposed to being around people. You've got this as opposed to, you know, going and doing something and all of these things that just kind of
Push.
are easy to write an algorithm for. You know, so we've got this that's trending now. Pow. You know, like algorithms write themselves. Like people don't even do it anymore. So it's very, very easy to make things so easy that it drowns out the little guy. So fucking easy.
I feel like that's too because it's missing the human touch, right? So like
Totally.
you mentioned, with an algorithm, it's all just based on a numbers thing. If there are actual people involved in the promotion of small artists, then it wouldn't be the same story. Technology in the scene, dude, is such a double-edged sword. We have the huge ability to take your music and blast it in front of, you know, millions of people, thousands of people, whatever the case is. That's all there. But at the same time, because we all have that same opportunity to do so, so does everybody else. So, you know, 30 years ago, if you wanted to find new music, man, you were going out of the record store, right? And whatever was there was there. It's either that or you had to be in the scene and know where those underground shows were.
Mhm.
Nowadays, dude, it will take you approximately 2.5 fucking minutes to find 40 different bands in 10 different countries with 2 clicks of a button online. So while, yeah, you're getting out with this technology in front of many tens of thousands of new people, potential new fans, so is every other band. And because of that, and all these bands are coming to light, now you've got an influx of artists popping up out of nowhere. I mean, we're talking, you know, probably hundreds of thousands of artists coming onto the scene across the planet every year, you know? So now, because you have this huge amount of artists popping up in front of these millions of people, now it's almost like dogs fighting over a tree, right? So everyone
Right.
wants that
Yeah, yeah.
exposure. Everybody wants to get out there. But, you know, your music and your art is one click away from them moving on to the next 50 people behind you. So yeah, you might get that exposure, but it's coming at the cost of you're just something else that they can just simply one click, they're moving on. You know, if they didn't like your music 20 years ago, well, you know, they spent the money on the CD or the record or whatever, they're not going back with it, you know, so you've kind of made your money. It's not the greatest thing, but nowadays, dude, one click and you're behind.
pretty much.
You know, I want to
Well
latch
said,
into
Mark.
your record store thing, man. I was actually looking around yesterday. There's no fucking record stores anymore. I think the
Yep.
social media and Spotify and things like that have become the Walmart to mom and pop shops for record stores.
Absolutely.
Like
100%.
you can't really find CDs unless you go to the bands themselves, and the bands themselves are struggling to find an audience because everything's gone. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
It's
they're outnumbered.
it's a musical ghost town. You know, and it's shitty. It's deflating for the artists. Like you get something rolling with your social medias, and you're expecting the outcome. Then when you finally start seeing something like that, next other band is around and they steal your thunder, because like you said, there's like these bands are a dime a dozen, and it's just there's no possible way to get your music out there anymore. It's really difficult. It's like you just mentioned record stores, and it just popped in my brain. It's like, oh, I was just driving around yesterday trying to find a record store. They're all gone, you know.
Exactly. Well, it's exactly, dude. And then, you know what's funny is, dude, in brand new cars, they don't even have CD players. You know?
Right?
So it's like, well, what the
Computers
fuck,
don't have
man?
CD players.
You know, I printed out a bunch of CDs, the labels and stuff, and all I can do at this point is literally give them away for free because people can't even fucking play the things.
That's sad.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
man.
I think
Physical media.
I think another thing, like there's a lot of bands, but then it's like almost half of those bands they all record themselves and they think they, you know, can do it all by themselves, my band included. But it's like it really is like there's just like 300 bands in your area where it's like there's no one wants to be a fan anymore. They all just want to be in a band, and it's like some people, some bands just, it's like maybe you should just be fans because
That's a great point.
they put out stuff, and then it makes it so hard though. Like the metal community is so oversaturated with bands.
Oh, it's
Big
awesome.
And
time.
like I'm in probably 30 different metal groups alone on Facebook, and most of them are North Carolina based. And I'll share it whenever we put something out, I'll share it in every group. I'll maybe get one like. People will not click on stuff like that. So it's like you need things that
oversaturation.
force people to listen to your music, which is, that's the good thing about Spotify, unless they're removing playlists and stuff, because then they're forced to listen to it, especially if they have free, because it's like, oh shoot, I already used my 6 skips or whatever. I have to listen to this
I gave
stupid band named Sagen. And it's like you do all that, and it's, how do you even get you have to play gigs, you have to, that's another thing, like people get forced to listen to your music, come see another band at a show, and it's like you have to force people to listen to it now, instead of like, it's almost like people just don't want to hear new music unless they're the like convenience factor of, oh, I'm already listening to Spotify, I'm already
I feel
listening
like
to other
it's
bands.
basically pure luck at this point. If you happen to pop up when Spotify is going off in the background, or your band is popping up in the background, well, yeah, they didn't directly click on you. It was happenstance, the fact that they came across your music. And if you're lucky, they're a fan at the end of the day. And if you're just anybody else, I mean, they probably just keep moving on.
Yeah. And here's why
It's frustrating.
self-marketing works, because like Mark just like put it very, very eloquently. There's a reason why when you're on you know, Amazon Prime or Netflix, why you tend to settle on a movie that you've already seen, because there is so many you know, projects coming out, but most of them aren't very good. It's just a platform to, you know, get it out there. But my next door neighbor, I gave a copy of our Voidkeeper album to, and he was like so used, he's a big metalhead, and he was so used to people giving him albums that when he actually put us on his car, he was like, this is good. This is good. You know, like it's
But if
people
you
aren't willing to give stuff a chance. I don't feel like as much anymore, because a website decides it for you.
I think a big issue too, and I don't know if it got talked about. Sorry, I had to go for a quick second. My dog is diabetic. I had to go give him his insulin
you're
shot.
good.
So that
You're
was
good,
that. That
How
was
dare you.
right. How dare I go take care of my goodest boy? But I want to talk about that because what I came back to was you know, a lot of people just don't want to listen to new music, that Stephen was saying. I don't really think so much that it is that people don't want to listen to new music. I just think that society has programmed us to constantly look like, remember the past. Like, hey, remember when Metallica came out with Ride the Lightning back in like 1980?
We lost you.
Remember,
Can
you
hear
guys
us?
lost us?
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
hear me?
Fine.
Perfect. Here we are.
Sorry.
It's like, hey, remember when Metallica came out with Ride the Lightning back in, I don't know, like 1980 something? Hey, remember when Iron Maiden came out with their first album in like 1980 something? Remember when Peace Sells came out in, I don't know, 1980 something? Hey, remember when? And it's never like, hey, like, look at these new artists that are out here right now. It's never that. We live in a society that so much wants to look back at the past, and you're almost beaten over the head with it over the past. And it's not that I don't want to be this unfeeling kind of, you know, you can learn from history, and you hear that phrase a lot. It is true, you can learn from history. It is true that you know, there are some historical things that, like, you know, are good to keep with you. But if you're just constantly, like from grade school to now, just constantly beaten over the head with, hey, remember this from God knows how long ago?
It's like
You're
when
not
you go to
gonna-
a bar, man, or you go out into a social situation. Like if you go to a bar, the generation behind us is always gonna be like, oh, I used to listen to this and this from the 70s and the 80s and stuff. And that's an entire huge group of people who are never gonna get out of that. It's like those
No.
bands
Exactly.
existed 30 years ago,
I love my
it's hard
dad.
to try something new.
By the way, with my
I-
previous
like-
comment, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I wasn't trying to say that people aren't interested in listening to new music and experiencing that. So that was not what I was trying to say. So sorry.
I don't think no problem. I don't think that was your intent. So that's fine. Like what I'm going to say, from what Mark just said is, I just want to say, it's like, I love my dad. My dad is the guy that got me into metal, but going by what you were just saying, it's what they're in. They're just not going to get out of it. He will not listen to any of the black metal bands or the I don't know, he calls it Cookie Monster bands.
Mhm.
He doesn't want to. And it's just because he doesn't like that vocal style. Where it is like, I feel like he would if he gave it a chance, but it is a generational thing. And I believe it also just comes with age. You get complacent with what you used to listen to and what you like, and you don't want to
What's
get out
familiar.
of this familiarity. You don't want to get out of this like safety zone that you're in, where it's like, oh, I want to go and maybe listen to these new bands or maybe go do this new thing. But what if I don't like it? I'm just going to go, as you said, I'm going to go watch that same Amazon movie that I watched a bajillion times before instead of
Exactly.
watching a new thing, because what if I don't like it? I want to go over to Mason, who's been
Is he still
very
here?
much. Is he still here? He is here on my car. He's cruising in his car right now. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sir, can I talk to you, or we got to wait for you to get to your destination?
Oh, perfect. I thought it. Okay. I thought it was glitching. You go
I
ahead
can-
and talk to me. I'm gonna have to get off here soon, but let's have this conversation.
Where you
All
going?
right.
I'm meeting up with a friend. Apparently we're going out tonight, I was told. But but anyways,
Well-
so far I have agreed with pretty much everything you guys have said. It's been like 20 minutes since I've checked it, but I think you guys are making some very crucial points about how this has kind of become an abuse of the artist, like an abusive relationship almost.
Yeah.
I think so. I was telling my family I was going to get on this call because I was pretty excited about talking about this, and I was mentioning what keeps happening, and even my dad was like, why don't you just make your own platform? I think the problem with that is that you have to rely on people to move towards that. They have to join that platform. They have to be a part of it and be involved in it. And I think that is a difficult thing to foster. I honestly do think that it's hard to get people to do what you want unless you know how to work with people. And when
That
you
is
guys were
true.
talking about what were you guys saying? Oh, are you on Spotify? That whole thing? And you guys, no, we're not on Spotify. That whole part, I wanted to interject and I wanted to say that, if that's how it's going to be, we got to have a strategy of how we're going to get people to move towards that. And I think having, some form of like, I don't want to be so antiquated to say business card, but some sort of business card to say, these are where we're at. This is where our music is. If you can't buy a CD because they don't make cars with CD players anymore, you can stream us here at XYZ. And I think the closest like substitute for Spotify right now, I would say, is Bandcamp. And it's not really a substitute because they don't have everything, and it's artist submitted.
Yeah.
Even though,
I'm good with Bandcamp.
how Bandcamp is like Epic Games owns it now, I think.
I think so.
So no matter what, we can't escape these giant bits for whatever reason. It's kind of becoming disheartening, to be honest with you. But
Well, something
what was
that
the question?
something that I wanted to talk about was, a lot of artists we were talking about complacency and people only wanting to listen to stuff that they know rather than stuff that they don't know, stuff that is new. I recently did an interview with you guys, Symphony of Heaven, a little bit ago, and you guys are what you guys would call yourselves is a Christian metal band. And you guys, I remember, being kind of, wow, these guys face a lot of adversity in the metal scene as it is. But you guys have a cover of Flesh and the Power That It Holds on your album that you
That's
guys
another thing
recently
that
just
pisses
came
me
out
off.
with.
When people are like, all like, oh, like that band's awesome, but I can't get behind, they're a Christian band. I can't really,
I
don't
thought
wanna
you were
listen to
literally
them 'cause
about to say.
the lyrics are
So I thought you were
like
literally about to
Christian
say.
based.
I thought you were literally about to say it pisses you off that they have a cover of Flesh and the Power That It Holds on their album. I was gonna be
No,
like,
no.
why?
It's like, well, it's like, okay, you can't get behind a band because they have Christian like themes and lyrics and stuff, but you can listen to bands that like talk about killing babies
Cannibal
and
Corpse.
mutilating bodies and murder and stuff. It's like you can agree on that stuff and still listen to the band. Like you don't agree on it, but you still listen to the band. It's like why can't you do that with like Christian based stuff? Like what's the big
all
deal? The
childish.
music's good. The music's good.
Well, there are
Exactly.
some weird biases with people that listen to music. The point that I was trying to get to, though, was they have this, they're a newer band. They have what you would call maybe a, if you went out and you wanted to purchase their CD or purchase their music on iTunes, it's a new band. So you're kind of like, hesitant about buying it. What if I don't like it? But then you see at the bottom, Flesh and the Power That It Holds. And if you're a fan of Death, like I'm a very big fan of Death, and you see that, you're like, huh, why is that on the end of there? Maybe I'll check this out, And so you check out that thing that's familiar, but then you're like, hey, I like this band. Let me see what the rest of their stuff sounds like.
It's a gateway drug.
It's the gateway drug. That familiar can be either good or bad. So this weird thing that people are about, like, hey, like, I don't want to listen to something new. I just want to listen to the stuff that I know. A lot of bands that do covers, I'd say a lot that I'm a cover snob, because you either have to do that cover right or, be hated because you fucked up a cover. I just don't feel like it's a thing that bands need to do a cover in general in order for people to go in and listen to their music, just to have that
Or if you do
gateway
a cover,
drug.
then do it as your band.
Right.
Make it something really special.
I think it's
Like
Right.
Cradle
intimidating.
of Filth covering Iron Maiden. Cradle of Filth totally owned Iron Maiden. They made it
Yeah.
their song.
Yes,
Hallowed
Hallowed Be Thy Name.
Name.
Hell yeah, I was listening to that
Yeah.
on the way here.
That's the best cover I've ever heard, and Cradle of Filth owned it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that. I love that cover because I was very skeptical about
So
it.
was I.
But
I had dinner with that guy in Iceland once, and it was impossible to understand a single thing he said.
that.
Did you have a
Danny
hard
Bill.
time seeing him over the spread because he's so tiny?
Exactly. He's like, "Pass ketchup." What? Oh, the ketchup. Like, okay, dude, just say that.
I almost feel like covers nowadays too, like they are also a double-edged sword. I feel like a cover brings again that familiarity that might draw someone into your band, right? But at the same time, it can be kind of bad news to do a cover, not only because if you blow it, you're in kind of deep shit, but on the flip side of that too, it's like you got to deal with the band you're covering with.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you fuck up during your releasing of the cover, right, and you put it on some service or a stream and you get somehow by accident get a royalty on that, or you get basically sued by a band
Yeah.
over what you chose to play as a cover, I mean, there's actually like a level of risk involved in covering, certain artists nowadays versus, the cover bands that are at the bar every day that no one's ever going to think twice about.
And what's even worse is like there are bands out there whose whole careers start with a cover, not anything
Cradle of
original
Filth,
that they
dude.
ever write. Right.
Cradle of
Not,
Filth, they started as an Iron Maiden cover band.
Yeah.
right. Not anything that they've ever written, not any kind of original work, a cover. And I look at that and it's just it's just disheartening a lot that one, you have bands that, their careers start on covers and that's how they get big. Two, you have artists that, the only way for them to reel in people in general is to have some kind of cover on their album, just so that they can reel in those people who are skeptical about anything new, skeptical about progression in the scene. Because like, I feel like a big problem, and especially like with like maybe like my parents' generation, I'm 28. A big problem with like, the generation before mine, before ours, there's so much like, back in the 80s, this is what we did. Back in here, this is what we did. And it's just like, that's cool. But it's not that time anymore. Like 20 years, 30 years, 40 years have
Longer,
gone
man.
by.
It's like 40
Like,
years at
Yep.
this point.
yeah, like 40 years have gone by since then. And, music's changed. Infrastructure has changed. Cars have changed. Everything has changed.
Everything's changed.
Yeah. Just literally. The music scene in general, because this is what we're talking about, it's not Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer. It's not these bands anymore.
Yeah.
For an entire generation of people to be like, I'm not listening to this because it's not something that I like. It's fine if you don't like it, but to outright say, we just want bands that sound like this, the scene never improves.
No,
it just
it becomes stagnant.
stays
Mhm.
right. It just stays stagnant.
I agree.
That is a huge problem in the scene right now for me as well. It's the feeling that, they want it to be this stagnant thing, just staying the same, never moving on, never getting better or worse or anything, just staying controlled, in this world that is uncontrollable. They want this one thing to be controlled.
It makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, that might just be them feeling that's the only thing they can control in a world like today's, honestly. You look at all the different subgenres of metal, and I mean, you could basically say, it's almost impossible to disagree, I guess, but like each genre that we have of metal today is in some shape or form a worship of a former band. I mean, you look at black metal and it's all just old school Bathory and Venom worship. And then you look at doom metal and everyone claims it's Sabbath worship.
Yeah.
And, you can go on about death metal. It's all just old Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under worship. I mean, at one point or another, yeah, we all have to step back and admit that the same thing we're kind of shitting on with the past is at the very least, a stepping stone to where we are today, and at least an idea of where we can take it to go forward. But if you don't look at it with forward progression, like you said, it's just become stagnant. We don't want entire genres. And I see this a lot with core music. If you get hardcore or you get into metalcore and stuff like that, back when they first started really popping off, there was so much creativity in those scenes. That's what got me into heavier music and stuff in general. And now when I see a band that's listed as metalcore, dude, I have problems just being able to tell them apart anymore, because the scene has become just so stagnant. And I get it. People like what they like, but when you overkill that to death and beat the dead horse, it's like, well, are you trying to get somewhere with this? Or are you just trying to stay still? Like, this isn't, 2000 anymore. This isn't 2001. Like, I love the music from that generation. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, if that's all we had for 20 years was zero progression in that music, then of course, every single artist who's involved is going to struggle, because there's no separation of who the heck is who, and there's no difference in what people are doing. And it's like, well, damn, how is anyone in, just as a musician in general? I mean, if every rap song had the same 808 beat, and, I'm not really big into rap or hip hop, but you can argue that a lot of rappers and hip hop artists use the same type of beats and all that shit. Well, you got to wonder, well, are you trying to stand out and get attention, or are you just kind of blending back in? And that creates that stagnant feeling a lot of us tend to find in this scene.
I can't tell the difference between like rap for the last 10 years, man. The pentameter is always the same. It's like sucking the dick, sucking the dick.
Well,
It's always the same thing.
I find it hard, even just in any scene right now, to kind of find, to kind of differentiate between different artists sometimes, because of this weird like stagnation, especially in like the core scene. You see like I remember when Wage War first came out, when they came out with Blueprints, and that was like something, cool, different, something I haven't really heard in the core scene before. And it was nice when it first came out.
Yeah.
But then every fucking band just started sounding like Wage War after that. Like, every single one. And it just gets old. It got stagnant. It felt like nobody was really progressing anywhere. It just felt like a copy paste because this is popular. And it's not supposed to be this is what's popular. in any music scene, in any kind of art, it's not supposed to be about what is popular. It's supposed to be about, you know, you know,
Well,
your
it's expression
view.
at the end of the
Right.
day.
That's it. It's never
That's-
supposed to be this weird, you know, what's popular, what's going to get us paid, what's going to be profitable, what's going to be marketable, you know, just to tie it all together in one big bow here. It's not supposed to be that shit, you know, and I think the scene really is suffering from all of that because we're being told like, hey, look, this is what's going to sell. Hey, look, this is the kind of sound that sells. And
But that's
you're
just it, man. That's a social media plague for you because that gets exacerbated by that. As soon as something gets popular, then it's on every single Instagram reel. It's on every single TikTok. It's on every
It's
single Snapchat.
sponsored.
So exactly. And now they get these sponsors. I mean, it just becomes such overkill
Yeah.
for something that, of course, people are going to look at that and be like, I want what he's having. Let me do
Right.
that. And maybe I will get the same treatment. And now we've got 10 million of the same type of thing.
It's a guy starving in the desert. It's two guys starving in the desert of not starving, but two guys dying of thirst in the desert. One person with water comes along and says, jump through the hoop and I'll give you water. Guy jumps through the hoop. Other guy says, well, I want water too, so I'm going to jump through the hoop. Then you see a bunch of people start jumping through the hoop just to get one little sip of water, one little sip of,
Yeah.
hey, I
Yeah.
want what that guy has. And it's not the way it's supposed to be, man. You know, we're not supposed to be sitting here sucking the dick of a corporation
No,
in order
fuck
to
that.
further, you know, our own art, in order to further, you know, our own music here. It's just not supposed to be the way that
When you
that the
said
scene
the
is-
desert thing, all I could think of was Beavis and Butthead tripping on peyote.
the son
You
is
know,
stupid.
That's why. All right, I'm not gonna try to like inflate myself over here, but that's kind of why I wanted to do Metal Incorporated. I wanted to bring together different bands of all genres, you know, as I'm tired of people stuck within this rut where no one's hearing you. It's all sounding the same.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted metal can be the flavor of life if you're into that kind of style. People who, oh, I only listen to death metal, I only listen to black metal. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. There's good bands of all genres.
Yeah.
And I started Metal Incorporated to try and help these bands because all right, so I'm a dinosaur. My band, we were only active from like 98 or so to 2007-ish. And back then it was just street team, hit that pavement. You know, you got to put up those flyers, you got to go to other people's shows, you got to help them out. It's a community. We actually built a community of these bands back then. I'm sure you guys heard me say this with John on past interviews, but if you haven't, little summary is we had a little Metal Incorporated, air quotes, community of a bunch of bands helping each other out at our shows. We would play shows exclusively, but we would also look out for other bands and be like, hey, come play some shows with us. You know, we started becoming friends with more and more bands and it blew up. Our Central Valley over here in California had a sick ass metal scene. And it was because of us. We were hustling together as a family. It was kick ass. And that's what I was wanting to do with Metal Incorporated, because going from 2007-ish to bam, up to 2020, it's a whole different ball game. Like I was like, dude, social media fucking sucks. You can't do anything with it. But I was like, well, let's try to do what I was doing back in the day with this Metal Incorporated idea. Back then it was called Unbound Productions. But now I'm trying to make it so that all these bands work together to help each other explode. And it sucks that you have to do that to try to beat the shitty algorithm that is forcing all the artists back. Because they want you to pay for the sponsors. They want you to pay for the advertising. And every time you pay for these things, they throttle anything anyways, because they want you to keep paying. They shouldn't be throttling what your followers see to begin with. That should be, I don't know the correct term, that should be illegal. If you post something, all of your fans should be able to see it. That's you sharing to the world. You know, the fact that they throttle it and they're saying, oh, you want more of your fans to see this? Well, here, give us $50. No, that should be illegal.
This is something you and I kind of talked about, Josh, the other day when we were trying to figure out our Spotify numbers and which of our fans actually had this problem. In order for me to reach our Instagram base, I had to boost our post. So I had to, because it's one of those things, there's 9 million things to scroll by. How am I going to know that my own fan base, the people who enjoy my music, are actually going to see that, hey, it's the band you like. We're kind of having this problem. We could use your help. you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But had I not paid to get the outreach to our actual selected fan base, the people who liked our page, you know, I wouldn't have gotten nearly the amount of feedback we did, or, you know, most of our fans wouldn't even have known that their accounts were no longer following us. And I had to pay per day for that post to be up.
How much was that?
See,
It's almost
lot.
like pay to play, but
Yeah.
online now.
that's BS.
That's
And
See, and that shouldn't be a thing because
it
a
should
lot
be
of bands, they don't have that financial possibility of doing what you did. Like me, when I went from 1,018 down to 132, I'm not about to spend money. I got things going on over here. I had to buy a new car, just had to buy a new
Of course.
refrigerator.
Yeah.
I'm
Of course.
strapped for cash, you know? So
Us
it's
being
like,
able to do that is honestly a luxury,
yeah, it's like
but it's not what I'm proud of.
2 years
Yeah.
in the work of hustling just gone in an instant. And then it's like, man, I can get that back if I drop like $100, you know? But then again, I don't think that can work because like I said, you did it and
Mhm.
you lost even more. I was doing it word of mouth, the freeway. Let's see, I went up from 132, we're up to 252. So
Yeah.
it's like we've got an improvement, but it's like,
It ain't
that's
2 years. now.
BS because we have like 2,300 followers or something. And you can tell that right there is our posts being throttled. They're not allowing people to see our posts because we're not paying for that advertising. It's bullshit.
Bottom of the totem pole.
and the fact that the scene has kind of almost become pay to play makes it very
Oh,
hard for
absolutely has to.
it-
It's
it-
scary.
it makes it very hard for any good artist, you know, whether it's Voidkeeper, whether it's the Obsidian Resurrection, whether it's, you know, any of these artists to get out here, to get noticed. Like, you know, if you don't have, you know, Metallica like funding, if you don't have, you know, the means to get yourself out here the way like these other bands with good funding have, you know, it's almost like luck of the draw. You could be a very good artist. You know, you could be the next big thing. But because of the way the scene is right now, they're not promoting good they're not promoting good artistry. They're not promoting good, you know, good bands. They're promoting who pays the most, who's ready to literally sell their fucking left testicle in order to get out here. And that's what we're going to promote. And that's why you get such garbage artists out here, not just fucking, you know, in the metal scene, but just out there in the pop scene and everything else. That's why you get artists like Lizzo. That's why you get artists like fucking Drake. That's why you get artists like fucking, I don't know, insert
motherfuckers
Yeah,
don't
like
even
fucking
break their
Pitbull
hands.
or something like that.
insert shitty metal
R.I.P.
artist.
Coolio. Sorry.
Right. Insert shitty metal artist here, insert shitty rock artist, jazz artist, you know, country artist, whatever. It's because these people aren't good artists. It's because they're paying the most to I guess be promoted the most. Mason, you look like you have your hand up. What's up?
So I need to get off here, but I wanted to interject with this final point. And I do agree. I think they're promoting debauchery and unoriginality because platforms like Instagram or TikTok, they'll take these stupid concepts, these trends, these fads that pop up and disappear, and they'll promote these people to the point where there's going to be one person almost per trend that is known for that trend. And those people see a massive increase in following base and likely revenue because, I mean, look at Vine, for instance. Like, that was a platform, that was a thing. And now the Paul brothers are these massive like superstars based on pretty much that. What'd you get? I said TikTok, the D'Amelios or whoever the hell, they're massive because of that. These things, they're not promoting true talent. They're not promoting artistry. Artistry is almost an underground art form that's kind of is on the dying line as it is. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, that's the point I wanted
No,
to
we hear you.
end
I
out.
agree.
I
Absolutely.
gotta get going. But John, I appreciate you having me on here to have this conversation. Voidkeeper guys, I hope things work out for you, and I'll be listening to your guys' stuff. I followed
Thanks.
you guys.
Yeah. Good to
Well,
see you.
Mr. Mason of Symphony of Heaven, correct? All right. Give yourself a quick little plug since you're gonna
Yeah.
be leaving the conversation, man. Just let people know where they can find
I'll
you.
check you out for sure.
Hell yeah.
You can find us. Well, I don't want to plug Spotify, but you can find us on Bandcamp at Symphony of Heaven. There are two accounts. One is our labels account. One is our old Bandcamp, like our independent account. You can find us at Instagram, Symphony_of_Heaven. And we have a Discord server, which I'll send the links to that, John, so you can put that in here. But yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Support Metal Inc. to anybody who's listening.
Yeah.
And yeah, share this around. Seriously, there needs to be a change, and I think we need to be the change that we want to see. To
You get the front of it.
Exactly. We can't keep bitching about it. We got to be at the front lines. We got to be doing the work. You know, we can't be expecting others to do it for us or expect the ones that are already there that we're bitching about the change. We have to be the change. So yeah, Mason's absolutely right.
I mean, one thing I definitely want to note, I mean, this is, it goes personally, it goes from our band and many others involved for both of you guys. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're fortunate to have the resources like John with Metal of the Masses, with Josh with Metal Incorporated, because if, as an individual artist, man, we don't stand an individual chance to sticking up for ourselves in the scene, to sticking up towards Spotify and these big companies. However, if there's a way to amass all the people who are like us, then we might have that chance. And because people like Josh, who have been cool enough to put together this collective of bands, and people like you who are able to make those bands' voices heard, I mean, that in itself to me is the primary step of moving forward. You know, you're taking a little bit of everybody, a little bit of everybody's case, you're giving them a voice, you're letting them learn that they can help each other, not just themselves. And if we go, you know, collectively come together, in itself, we become the scene. The larger something like Metal Incorporated can grow, the more in itself will have influence over a scene. It's like, you know, Josh was saying, it's one of those things where back in the day, if you hustled it and you got a bunch of good bands together, man, the possibilities were endless. If you made that scene and you became the kings of that, then you were the one the companies were looking at. You were the one selling the tapes, the records, the mixtapes, all that stuff. You were out there. Today's world, it's a different world. However, having the resources like we do, where I can get, you know, hot sauce made overnight for my band, I can get custom gear, guitar picks, I can have every little piece of merch and be heard across multiple web shows, talked about by people I've never even heard of, just because we work with groups like you guys. I mean, that in itself, to me, is the only way that collectively we're going to move forward as a scene. We need voices to be heard, and you two are both an excellent platform for that to happen.
You're here.
And I appreciate that. I just want to give a quick little plug though. We did lose Steven as well. His phone died. So I just want to plug at Sagen_NC on Instagram. His band is Sagen. They are a band out of North Carolina. They're a prog death band. Go give their Instagram page a follow, bump up his followers at Sagen_NC.
Will do.
Absolutely. So going back into the conversation here, one, I truly do appreciate that because like I say all the time, you know, I say it as a joke, but I also say it to be real. I am just some prick on the internet here. I have a very big, strong love for the scene. Like I say a lot, I'm not here to get anything for profit. I'm here to, you know, just I love metal and hard rock. I want to listen to it. I want to make sure that, like, you know, I'm not this stagnant thing, just listening to the same thing over and over again. I want to know what's out there, maybe a new sound that hasn't, you know, that I've never heard of before, and then maybe share that with somebody else. The only way to really help the scene really is to be at the forefront of it, to make sure that it is going in a direction that is, you know, not in a direction that it's just going to be taken advantage of, like how it is going or seems to have been going for the past, you know, couple decades or so. It seems to be somewhere along the way we got more concerned with how much we can get paid over how much, you know, actually goes into being an artist. You know, I get it. There's bills that got to be paid at the end of the day. There's money that has to be made at the end of the day. But if the artistry is ever sacrificed for monetary gain, that is where we start getting problems. And that
when
is
the
where
image overshadows the music.
Exactly. When
Yeah.
the image overshadows the music, that is where problems start to arise. And it has just been something that has been sitting and festering for so long because people have allowed it to be that kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you an artist or a musician?
Exactly. And that's just a big thing that, we have to stop. I've said it a couple times through this conversation, not just with Spotify. We have to stop allowing big entities taking our art or taking your art, the artist, and really just pimping you out, saying we own you, saying like, you work for us, where if you guys never give anything to them because they're using your work, they wouldn't have anything to give to they wouldn't have anything. Like, the power is in the power is in the hand of the artist. And this is something that I advocate for with any band, really, not just you guys, Voidkeeper, not just Symphony of Heaven, not just Sagen, not just any band that I play on Metal and on Metal for the Masses, not just any band in Metal Incorporated, any band in general, whether it's somebody who's been in the scene for 20 years or somebody who just started today.
Yeah.
The power is in the hand of the artist. It is never in the hand of some corporate identity that claims they can do this for you. They're snake oil salesmen. They're used car salesmen. That's all they are. That's all they'll ever be. Once you understand that the power is in your hand and you don't allow them to give you the false idea that they hold the cards, you are way more in control about what happens in the scene than these people are.
And that's not just music, that's everything. That's everything up to government. You know what I mean? Like war and religion. Like if enough people make a stink about it, that's how things change.
The big problem though is like at the end of the day, like it's a fear of, well, what if I don't do this with Spotify, or what if I don't do this with iTunes? What if I try to go do this myself? There's a fear of the unknown. And I get that. Like, everybody's
what if
afraid
I get the hamburger instead of the lobster roll?
Right. Everybody's afraid of, well, what if I do this and I don't like it? Or what if I do this and it doesn't pan out right? At the end of the day, if you can do something, this is not just for music, this is for anybody. And I tell this to anybody. At the end of the day, if you die a poor man or die a poor woman, and
die a noble poor man.
Right. If you still have your own moral integrity, you never sacrificed your moral belief for anything, and you stayed true to what you believe in, you stayed true to your own values and your own, moral compass. Look, you died better than most. Doesn't matter if you had a net value of 0 or if you had a net value of whatever the fuck Metallica's is these days.
Yeah.
That's something that I think a lot more artists need to be about in the scene. I don't think it's so much it is a big corporation thing, part of the problem, but it's also a moral problem. Yeah. Individual morality kind of problem. And I think that there needs to be more advocacy towards being, more of a moral compass in the scene of, doing what's right and not sacrificing, yourself, not sacrifice.
Oh, you're back.
It needs sorry, what I was saying was it needs to be more of a, not sacrificing yourself in the process of trying to get your stuff out there. Because then if you sacrifice yourself and you start falling in line, you start sounding like every other artist that's out there that has done the same thing, that suffers from that. And it's because they do that. And also it's about knowing that you have the power. If we all just understood that and walked away from Spotify, walked away from iTunes until they want to treat us right, then guess what? They have nothing to sell if we don't give it to them. And I think a lot of artists need to understand that. They hold so much power and they don't even
just because it's easy doesn't mean it's right.
Exactly. And I think that is kind of where we circle back in this conversation to where we started. Spotify needs to understand that
we keep losing you.
Fuck. How about now? You got me?
Gotcha.
For now, we do.
For now. So this is where we need to circle back to. Spotify needs to understand that the artist holds the bargaining chips and they can only abuse them for so long before everybody kind of wakes up to that and walks away. And artists need to also know that, or artists, artists need to come together and reform the moral compass of the scene. I'm not saying we need to all, put our Sunday best on and go to church. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is like, we need to stop sacrificing our own moral convictions in order to get whatever it is that these corporations want to pay us for our art, to tell us that they own us.
Yeah,
It's
for
not,
sure.
you need to be yourself at the end of the day.
Dude, stay true to yourself, keep your boots on the ground and keep looking forward. Because if you look back and you stay still, nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly. You regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we definitely need to start educating other artists, and most importantly, I mean, yeah, it's good to take responsibility on our own as artists for how we do what we're doing in the scene.
Mhm.
But I think it's good to also, we need to educate our fans as to what goes
Exactly
on.
why this is the problem.
Exactly, because so for example, when my band did reform about 2 years ago, oh shit, it's already been 2 years. But anyways, when we finally did get on Spotify, I was telling everyone we're on Spotify, and the reaction people were giving was like, "Holy shit, you're on Spotify! How long before you're a rock star? When's your first mansion going to be bought?" And I'm like, they think that just because you're on Spotify, you're going to be famous because Spotify advertises itself as such.
Yeah.
We need to start letting our fans know that this is not the case. Like, we're not going to make a fucking bit of money at all on this. We need to be more accountable with how we are as bands, but we also need to educate our fans that, hey, we still need your help and your support,
Yeah,
And
it
it's
was
not
it was
gonna-
really really hard. Like we were talking about, like especially bands like that have our amount of a fan base, but especially like when COVID hit, like bands like Anathema quit. That's like the biggest thing is that just like if anybody needs help right now, it's artists and musicians, and it has to be worthwhile to keep doing it, because if we think about like going through your day without music, it would be a journey through a desert.
Oh, awful.
I would kill.
There would be bloodshed.
Yeah,
boys.
dude, I wouldn't want to be around, man. Like, music is what it is the greatest.
But the more the little guys who get killed off who make this music, the worse things get.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't want to go into all of that, but I do have to say it. You do see what happens when the music that people listen to, especially people who are young and impressionable, is all about drugs, sex, money, murder, killing, that kind of
Normalized.
stuff. You see the stuff that has been normalized, and you see the stuff that is popular, and then you see stuff that goes on in, say, I don't know, Philadelphia or Los Angeles or like, Chicago.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that music
Not
is
great.
one of the main I'm not saying music is the root of all of that, but music, the norm is definitely,
It can
one
be
of
an
the,
extension of a corrupt area,
yeah. It's
And-
also music also stems from culture. And if
Yeah.
your culture is,
easy
if
to
your
reach
culture,
those people.
music also stems from culture. And if your culture's on the downslope, then, so
reflect
is your
that.
music. Yep. Your music will reflect it. So if, you want to be a force for change, maybe, I don't know, start trying to get in there and help out your local communities. Maybe start trying to not try to promote messages of hate and I don't know, just debaucheristic lifestyles, just maybe try to uplift instead of bring down. I don't know. It's just
Definitely
my
not
thoughts.
wrong, dude.
It's just my thoughts at the end of the day. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out there in the metal scene and just sing like,
Be preachy about it, but it's
Be-
just
but-
like every little
right.
bit, like the more nuanced, the better, because you have to treat your audience with respect too.
exactly.
Unless you're
know?
bored, then you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. If you're guar, then
Unless that's your whole like shtick,
if that's
you
your
know?
shtick, then
Right. But gentlemen, look, at the end of the day, I'm very super grateful that we all got here and we were all able to sit down and talk about these kind of
Absolutely,
things
dude.
that
Thank you
seem
for
to
having
be
us.
absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's Josh. Thank you for also being in here and being a way for me to get everybody together here. At the end of the day, Metal Incorporated has been a big help to not just these bands. It's been a big help to metal for the masses because one, it's provided me with a lot of bands that I can go to not just bring content to my show, but also help promote help talk about on my show, help play their music, help get their music out there. So Josh, thank you so much for,
Yeah, it's
you
nice to
know,
meet you, Josh.
yeah.
Hey man, no problem, man. It's an honor. I love music. That's my main reason why I did this. Like I keep telling people, I just keep looking for more and more bands and like, fuck, why doesn't this band have more followers? Man, this band kicks ass. I want to help them out. You know, I reach out to tons of bands every day. I get more no's than yeses because a lot of bands, they don't like communities at all. They say they're more independent. I get that. I really don't, because you kind of, you know, you need people to help lift you up, but I get what they're saying, but it's just not how I operate. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I'm trying to have Metal Incorporated as an outlet, like, you know, like we've been talking about, for everyone to come together and promote each other and help lift each other up.
Exactly.
And in a way, that's how I've always wanted metal for the masses to be. I hate mainstream radio. You know, I always grew up with it. I always grew up listening to stuff, and just was always upset that I never got to listen to metal on the radio. There was never really a whole lot. It was always the same. Like I said, just the same shit from the 80s that all of my parents listened to. Nobody ever playing anything new. So
Yeah. Like there's only 10 songs that have ever been written.
right. Like they're like, dude, like, holy shit. Like, has Pearl Jam just been the only band that there's ever been in the
Oh
world?
my God.
Fucking ever.
I met Eddie Vedder one time. He's such a tool.
I'm sure he is. Have you ever heard of the story about when what was it? Another Tool. Fuck. My brain just had a flat line. The absolute fucking Tool who wears the red hat.
Oh, Fred Durst?
Yep, Durst.
Oh man, I was gonna say that too.
Yep, that's it. When Fred Durst took oh no, it wasn't Eddie Vedder. Sorry, it was Eddie Van Halen. Still, Tools. Eddie Van Halen did a jam with Fred Durst and left all
Sorry
his
to hear
stuff
that.
there. Left all his stuff, and Fred Durst wouldn't give it back to him. So
What?
oh yeah, this was like a big
What a
thing. Go
dick.
look it up. Go look it up. So Eddie Van Halen drove across LA in like a BTR or some kind of like armored like military vehicle that he got from auction, showed up on the dude's house with a man bun and a fucking Glock and a samurai sword and said, "Give me my shit back, motherfucker." It is the
Awesome.
funniest
One
fucking
way to go
story.
about it.
Dude, it is the funniest fucking story I think I've ever heard. It's 100% true. I was not on anything because I don't do anything. This was
Fair
just
enough.
something that I
Dude,
fucking heard.
If anybody ever like takes any of my shit, I own a military Humvee, and I'm
There you
totally showing up with it. You just gave me a great idea.
Right, just give me my shit back, give me my shit back, motherfucker. There you go.
Exactly.
Just show up. What are they
Just
gonna
like
do?
show up in something really intimidating, but then just throw like golf balls or apples at their front door until they open. You know what I
Right.
mean?
But yeah, no, this has just been
Pop some balloons until they open the window.
but going back to what Josh was saying, like, you know, he started this to kind of get other bands together because, like, you know, the mainstream scene just isn't helping us out. And I started this because mainstream's just not really playing any of these bands that I like, you know, whether it's Voidkeeper, whether it's Night Demon, whether it's I don't know, Harakiri for the Sky, whether it's like all these bands that, like, you know, I find and wonder why they're not being played. And it's because of these weird algorithms, places like Spotify, organizations that don't really care about the art. They just care about what's marketable, and they deem what is and what isn't. These are big problems. And I think that the only way for us to fix it is we need to stop waiting or demanding that these entities change. And it's going to be tough, but we need to be the change ourselves. Artists need to be the change that they want. And if they're going to keep complaining about it, but not do anything about it,
Yeah.
then they need to be told to shut the fuck up and take it.
Mhm.
But if they are tired of it, then I would like to tell them, look, you need to be the change. There's other places out there, or you need to do it yourself.
Yeah,
That's the
that's it.
problem right there. You just said do it yourself. That right there, I'm going to chime in on that. There's a lot of
keep losing you
bands.
guys. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear.
All right. John, you said something about bands you need to shut up or do it yourself. That's the problem with a lot of bands. They say they have the do it themselves attitude, but then again, they're not getting the results they want. They're saying, or they're wanting to see. Now, not trying to say anything at all about any bands in Metal Incorporated, but just hear me out. Imagine this. There are over 200 bands in Metal Incorporated. We have several radios, 2 radio stations. We have several podcasts. We have a YouTube cooking channel where they use Metal Incorporated bands music in their shows. We have tons of resources. If all of these bands, say for example, Voidkeeper releasing an album next week, if every single motherfucking band would do one post just to support you and tag your band,
That'd be huge.
that would be huge, because
Absolutely.
I've crunched the numbers. I've calculated the amount of all of our followers. It's several millions, but none of the bands do it. It's so simple, something so easy to do, but no one does it.
Well, it's
It's
like,
like-
dude, anytime Josh has tagged us in a post, just whether we're making the weekly Spotify playlist or we made it onto the YouTube or just anything like that, we get a notification about it. And the first thing I do is I make sure that I do the exact same back. Like, this isn't a scratch
Yeah.
one side, reap the benefits and forget about the
Exactly.
rest of us.
Exactly.
We're happy to, it's just as good of a feeling being helped by other bands as it is to physically
help.
help other bands.
Yeah, you got it.
Exactly. But that's perfect. That's exactly what's supposed to be. But that could be our way to make us a force in the scene. That's what I'm trying to make Metal Incorporated into, a force into the scene. It's just, there's something in this scene that to me, it feels different than back in the day when I was doing it physically, the physical hustle. Yeah, it's good to play shows, but you have to do the hustle there. You have to put in the hard work.
Yeah.
It's same thing with nowadays, because everything's online, everything's digital. It's kind of like I told John a long time ago, I now use Metal Incorporated as my street light, my street post. So to advertise, but everything I post, I consider as a flyer, That's how I do it now, because A, my band isn't live, so I have to do everything online, but B, to build a community to where all the bands do this, we all post on that same street light, But eventually, if everyone does pitch in, this can blow up so quickly. It really can. And it's just, but that's the problem with the scene. It seems like everyone wants to be independent and they've forgotten about that brotherhood.
Well, yeah, if
Yeah.
it's not there, it's not there, man. And it's kind of like how John had touched base, dude. If it's not all of us taking that into accounting, if like you said, we can blame everyone else till the cows come home. But if the issues at the very bottom level lie within the bands ourselves, dude, as if we're not willing to help other people, and I don't just mean us, I mean just this any band in general. If we don't have each other's backs in a culture right now where we're not being saved by mainstream and there's no one else out there who's got our
We're
back,
gonna die.
we die off. It's
Yeah.
that simple.
Yep, exactly.
And I agree. If we're just going to rely on these big corporations or just on the mainstream to save us, we're just going to die off. We need to be the change that we want in the scene. We need to be the guys on the front lines. And you know what? Look, if that means that we just become a stepping stone for somebody else to continue it off and to just, get that going and they reap the benefits, look, that's fine. As long as we were here laying the groundwork for the change that we want in the scene, and then to have that continue, that's all that matters. But if people are just going to just complain, because I understand it makes you feel good to just complain about it. But if you're just going to complain about it and not do anything about it, at the end of the day, all you're going to get from somebody is just, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
gets old. It's boring.
It really does.
Yeah.
If you're just going to complain and complain and complain, but not do anything and not try to help yourself out, just shut the fuck up. And if you're just going to be around like some of the bands that you want to talk about in Metal Incorporated, if you just want to be a part of it just so that you can reap the benefits but not put anything into it, then you yourself also need to shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
You need to be here. You need to be, helping lift each other up, because that's the thing. It's a brotherhood. We're here to help
Exactly.
each other
It's a two-way street,
out.
not a railroad track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you don't like the other person's music, what is one post to you? What is
Oh, yeah,
just
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah, it's ego.
Dude, it's
Nothing.
fucking 45 seconds out of your life to type
Yeah.
up a good thing about someone else who could fucking use that good thing.
Mhm.
Simple as that. If you don't have
'Cause even
45
though-
fucking seconds to bring somebody up, then fuck you.
right? Because even though themselves might not like it, they post that. How many followers do they have? One of their followers might like that band, and then guess what? Now these people
It
are starting
grows.
it grows. It's starting to get passed around. And then that person will be, yo, where'd you hear this? Oh, I heard this from this band, and that band's getting passed around. Nobody thinks this far in advance. Everything's like the immediate. It's never 2 steps ahead. Majority of these people would be terrible chess players. You know,
You're right. Exactly.
it's
exactly.
majority of these people would be terrible chess players. The immediate
You're
is
not in it
never
for the
what
long
you should
run.
think of. You should always be thinking about 2 or 3 steps ahead. It's the same thing. It's not just the same thing in chess. It's the same thing in real life. 2 to 3 steps ahead. If I do this, what could potentially do that? You know, it's terrible to tell somebody to think about, if you do this, how's it going to benefit you? But yeah, think about how it's going to benefit you. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
If I
Everyone
promote this band,
forgets.
Exactly.
Everyone
Whatever your
forgets
driving
how
factor is,
far.
And a lot of people get defensive over that too. Like when you're saying, like, think about the long term. It's
Right.
kind of like an uphill battle, even just to say that to some people.
right? Like
Yeah.
if I post this post from Voidkeeper on Metal for the Masses, you know, and I'm not saying I dislike your music, but say I disliked your music, but I just, you know, hey, Voidkeeper's got this, check them out. You know, one of my followers might like you guys, so they go and check it out. And then they're like, hey, I really like this. This is where I
Attention
got it
attention,
from.
one way or
Yeah,
another,
exactly.
positive or negative, you know?
Exactly. That's the thing. It is not just supposed to be a me kind of thing. Because guess what? If this whole page, like if my page Metal for the Masses was just all about what I liked, holy fucking shit, would I have no followers? Would I be nowhere? I'd be nowhere to where I am currently am right now. But if I'm just sitting here going like, hey, check this artist out, or hey, check this band out, check this individual out, check out, you know, Metal Cooking, or like, you know, this whatever entity it is, check out Metal Incorporated. They have all these other artists on here. You know, a lot of people would look at that and be like, why am I promoting another source that might be seen as competition to Metal for the Masses? Because I don't think like that.
Exactly.
You know, it's
Same
not
here,
how
man.
it's not how you're supposed to think. You know,
Exactly.
if I don't have these artists right here, but this guy does, hey, go check this guy out as well, because I'm helping this entity out, in turn helping all these artists out that entity has get noticed, you know, because that's what
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
about. And
So
that's
I'm gonna say something it's just a heartwarming story that I'm gonna share. So like I told you back in the day when I was doing this shit with well, it was called, like I said, Unbound Productions back then. It blew up. I'm talking, I had freaking Winter Sun in there, I had Usurper in there. When Celtic Frost reformed, they were talking to me about joining. I had Christian. Now I remember I went to one of the Christian shows, like those guys to this day, they're still like the most badass people in the scene. Every time they were in town, they would always call me on my cell phone and invite me, give me backstage passes, all that shit. And this one time they called me, this was after they joined on Unbound Productions and started helping with promoting of all the other bands. I went on the tour bus with Moises, and he told me, what I'm doing is the final stand for metal, underground metal. And that resonated with me, because this guy, he was on the cusp of making it. Now Christian's huge, you know, back then they're big, but they were still in that starting out stage.
Yeah.
But he's telling me that what I'm doing is the last stand for underground metal. That's something that we need to do. We need to keep going. We need to keep moving forward with this mentality, because if there's no last stand for what we're doing, what else is there? You know, like, John, you got to keep doing what you're doing. What I'm going to be keep doing with Metal Incorporated, I need to keep doing and expand upon. It's like we always have to keep moving forward. There's going to be obstacles every single day. There's going to be obstacles that are going to be right in front of us, but we need to figure out how to get over them and around them, because the way the scene is now, it's toxic against independent artists, especially metal, and we need to be that last stand, you know. So
Well,
it's like
not
like
only do
people-
we need to be this last stand, sorry to interrupt you, not only do we need to
That's
be this
fine.
last stand,
Excuse myself for a second.
no worries. Not only do we need to be this last stand, but also bands like Voidkeeper, bands like Symphony of Heaven, and bands like Sagen. You know, all these bands need to be the last stand as well. It can't just
Mhm.
be.
It doesn't just fall on you guys.
Right. We can argue all day that these bands need to be noticed, that these bands need to be catered to, because if they aren't, then when Metallica, when Megadeth, when Iron Maiden, when Slayer, when all these other bands just fizzle out and go away, what do we
What's
have?
next?
What is next? You know,
Mhm.
what's next? What's after? What's the next What's the next chapter? You know, I'm not going to sit here and let a corporation decide when and if the death of metal comes. You know, I'm going to be here deciding that for myself, and I'm
Gotta
going to be
hold
here
the line.
fighting. Right. I'm going to be here fighting for that to keep it going. I can't do that though if bands just aren't willing to also stand next to me on the front line and get, you know, maybe take a bullet first, you know. That's really it's just how it is, you know. If you have a lot of artists out there who are willing to reap the reward but not willing to put in the work. And you can kind of gauge which ones those are. You can kind of see which ones those are. But you know, it's hard to kind of pick up. And then you also see a lot of younger artists, like just what was it, last week I was interviewing a band out of LA. They used to be called Excursion, now they're called Malform, but they're literally all under 21. And they're the next generation, you know. And I talked about that with them in the interview. They are the next generation. How hard, how easy is it for them to kind of navigate the scene, to get up and going, to, you know, to make it? Do they feel like it's easy? Do they feel like it's hard? And like, you know, it's a constant daily struggle because of how toxic and animalistic the scene is towards new artists. They only want, like we stated before, they only want what they know. They only want, you know, to be complacent. They don't want to be progressive. They don't want to look and see something new just in case they might not like it. And it's really hurting the scene. And it's not just people who don't want to listen to new music. It's people inside of the scene that aren't willing to go against the grain. And I think I think just because we're starting to beat the dead horse, but I think that's a good place for us to kind of come to a close on this, gentlemen. I really do appreciate you guys being here and wanting to talk about this kind of shit.
Oh, absolutely.
It sucks about what's going on with Spotify right now, but I am a firm believer that, you know, the more we keep advocating that, you know, more artists just need to walk away and find something new. You'll see these people change their fucking tune real fucking fast.
And sooner or later, it's gonna happen. And mark my words, it will happen.
Oh,
Because
will
listen,
happen. I mean, there's
it
a reason
will.
why MySpace isn't on the top of the world anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, like, it happens all the time. So yeah, Spotify.
But with Spotify,
their days are numbered.
it's money. You know, at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about your music. It's money. If they see all that money walking away.
Yeah, they're just like literally like, fuck you, blow me. Like that's
right.
it. They host shit and that's it. So we'll figure it out, and there are better times ahead. And
yeah, hopefully.
And
it all starts with us. It really does. At the end of the day, it all starts with us. But gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to talk about this.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you guys. All right, I've met you before, but it's a pleasure to meet you. And yeah, for having us.
Be safe, y'all.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Likewise.
Hell yeah.